information to me. I think I'd like to take this opportunity to tell you all a quick story about how we both met. I know it's been said a few times already, but I think it's especially relevant tonight at this venue. For those of you who weren't listening earlier, Susie and I actually met at a fishing lodge, much like this one, in Rivers Inlet, which is about an hour plane ride north of Port Hardy on the coastal mainland of British Columbia. I came to work at Rivers Inlet Resort, like my dad said, after returning home from a 6-month internship in Brazil in the spring of 2006. At the time I was a little lost and confused and a little unsure of what I wanted to do with my life. And I thought the fishing lodge would provide a good escape from reality and a nice source of income for the summer. Probably the farthest thing from my mind would be to meet the woman that I would spend the rest of my life with that summer. Anyway, it was what it was, and the night when I went to the fishing lodge and I was walking around the Port Hardy airport waiting for my float plane to take me to Rivers Inlet Resort, I was walking around and I realized, it's a small airport, and I realized after a while that the only people in the place were people my age waiting for the plane to take us to the lodge. And I first saw Susie sitting against the wall in the main waiting area with a small group of people. And her long blonde hair and her big blue eyes immediately caught my attention. And I'm not the hopeless romantic type or the one, I've never been one to believe in love at first sight, but I'm telling you, I don't know what it was, but there was something about her from the very first moment I saw her that told me she was special, and I knew she was the one. So anyway, I worked up the courage to go up and introduce myself. I walked up and said hi, and everyone there smiled and said hi back, except of course for Susie. She gave me a very disinterested hello. Barely looked up to see me. It was probably one of the rudest introductions I've ever been privy to in my life. But like I said, there was just something about her that drove me on, and I knew she was special. So later that day at the lodge, a group of us were exploring the river behind the resort, and I did my best to impress her. I remember there was this difficult section of the river where I extended my hand out to Susie to help her cross, thinking that I would come out as this kind and thoughtful person. Well, that was a big mistake. For those of you who know Susie, know she is a pretty independent person and isn't one to accept help too kindly. I remember she looked at my outstretched hand with a rotten scowl on her face and she said, "No, I don't want your help." She found her own way across the river. So obviously things weren't going too well for me, and although I was pretty discouraged, I never gave up. I never gave up in my pursuit for her affection. I worked all summer long. I've never worked harder in my life to impress her. I would find excuses during my shift to go up to the lunchroom where Susie worked just to say hi or even just get in a quick smile. I would always take light lunches because I knew that Susie couldn't eat until the guests had all left the lodge. And I would always be sure to be in the lodge late at night if Susie was cleaning up just to talk. I would even go so far as to let Susie beat me in crib out on the deck even though she thought she was rude. Seriously though, I worked all summer long to gain her trust, and over time she eventually warmed up to me. And we would hike up this river to a picturesque waterfall. It was about an hour hike up the river. And it was a kind of a special place for us. It provided a break from the lodge and a chance to be together. And I would look forward to those days the night before, rolling around in bed thinking about it. I lost my spot. But unlike that first day, Susie would accept my hand when I offered it to her, and even go so far as to let me carry her across a difficult deep section of the river. And it turned out to be a really magical summer, and one we both often look back upon with great affection, as you've all heard a few times tonight. So you fast forward 3 years to around now, and I find myself in a similar situation to the one I was in the spring of 2006 before I went to the lodge. I recently returned home from Peru, and although our future is much more certain than it ever was before, I'm still a little unsure about where we're going to end up. However, one thing has changed. I no longer feel lost. I remember emerging from that first summer with a new sense of purpose and direction. And I've realized over our last 3 wonderful years together, Suze, that it's not what you do in life that's important, it's who you spend it with. And I'm just so lucky that you've agreed to spend the rest of your life with me. I love you, and I love every little last thing about you, and I look forward to our journey ahead together with excitement, because I know in my heart that as long as we're together, everything will work out just fine.